everybody. Welcome to Cinema Trip Reviews. I am Wyatt, and today on the show, I'm going to be talking about Beau is Afraid. If you're new to the channel, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Go check us out on Instagram and Twitter at Cinema Trip Reviews. Also, wherever you get your podcasts, we're pretty much available everywhere, so drop in and leave us a good review there. This week, I am giving you another solo dolo review because not everybody is able to make it out to the theater for a new release and then have to make time for a review, so giving you another solo review. If you haven't got to see last week's episode, I did Evil Dead Rise. If you haven't seen that, don't worry. It is a non-spoiler review for half of it. So definitely go out and check that one out, even if you have seen it or haven't seen it. This week, I am talking about Ari Aster's brand spanking new movie, Beau is Afraid. His last release was Midsommar a couple years ago, and before that was Hereditary. Both movies have their fans and also have their critics. Hereditary is one of my favorite horror movies, not just of the modern era, but of all time. This movie has quickly grown on me. I actually expressed on Twitter my regret for not seeing it theatrically when it was released in theaters, just because of how much I love that movie and how creepy it is. Midsommar is such a different movie for Ari Aster going off of Hereditary. I do like that one, and not nearly as much as Hereditary, but I do enjoy it. I do have the director's cut back here. I still need to watch. I have it. I've had it for months. I still need to watch the director's cut. It's almost 3 hours long. Speaking of 3 hours long, Beau's Afraid is 3 hours long. This movie is huge. And to be honest, I'm not going to really go into depth about spoilers or anything of that nature, because the less you know about this movie, the better going into it. And I know for anybody that's watched the channel, I'm always complaining about trailers showing too much. If you go and watch the Beau is Afraid trailer, it's not going to give anything away. I mean, the only thing it's really going to give you is the basic premise of the movie. The movie does follow Beau, played by Joaquin Phoenix. He is planning a trip and going to see his mother. During that trip, he ends up getting hit by a car. He ends up getting taken care of by Amy Ryan and Nathan Lane's character. That's pretty much all you get from the basic trailer. It does show you a ton of other different things. I mean, this movie is 3 hours long. It's really hard to show you everything in a 2-minute trailer. Even though a lot of other movies are able to get away with showing most of the movie in these trailers somehow, Ari Aster and A24 did this trailer perfectly. They do not show you really anything at all. I thought I was prepared going into this movie just based off of some other reviews that were out there, of course, giving non-spoiler stuff because I didn't want to know any spoilers going into the movie. All I knew about it was a 3-hour-long nightmare comedy straight from the director's mouth himself. He's been describing this movie like this since he started writing it a couple years ago when it was titled Disappointment Boulevard. He always described it as like a 3-hour nightmare comedy. Close to 4 hours. Apparently he has like almost a 4-hour cut of it. They had to cut it down a little bit to put it in theaters. I'm excited for that director's cut eventually. This movie, when you hear that as like a 3-hour nightmare comedy, you assume it's going to be kind of like a horror movie in a way, or like a horror comedy. This movie is kind of like that in a way, whereas the horror isn't necessarily like a force that's trying to kill you or, out to get you. It's not a slasher or a ghost movie or anything of that nature. It's not anything like Midsommar or Hereditary. This movie is vastly different from both of those in content, in genre, and in tone. This movie does feel like a nightmare. Pretty much everything that you would be afraid of, everything that somebody would have anxiety about, this movie represents perfectly. Through the opening 25 minutes, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to handle this movie, to be honest. This movie goes 0 to 100 real quick. Everything, that dial was turned up to 10, past 10. It's turned up to 11 for this film. And it kind of reminds me in a way of, it's weird to kind of compare it to this. It kind of reminds me of like Curb Your Enthusiasm in a way. Whereas with that show, you have Larry David, who plays kind of the straight guy, where everything around him and every person around him is kind of like an exaggerated version of a real-life person. They take things a little too far. They take things too personally. Everybody's quick to anger. That's pretty much that through this whole movie. I mean, Beau is the straight guy throughout the whole film, and everything he interacts with, it's just something else. It's something crazy popping up, or his biggest fear comes to life, getting your keys stolen or locked out of your apartment, or if you're afraid of spiders. There's so many things, or just realistic little fears that or anxieties that people have that are represented in this movie. And I mean, it's a little cathartic in a way. It's a little cathartic, but I mean, it goes so hard, so fast in the beginning that I was like, it's sensory overload for a little bit. You think it was a little too much for me, but then it kind of, it kind of leveled off for a little bit, and it kind of started doing its own thing, and I started riding with it, and it made me appreciate the beginning a little bit more because, man, I don't know if I would have been able to do it with the tone of that first half hour throughout the whole 3 hours. That would be a heavy movie to sit through. But I like the way that it's paced, because even though it's 3 hours long, I feel like it didn't feel like that. Overall, through the course of the movie, it's kind of set up as far as 4 different parts. The first part, you really get to know Beau. You get to see where he lives, what his environment is like. You get to kind of really live with this character for a little bit and see what he's all about and see the craziness that's going on. The second part is what you really gonna get to see in the trailer as well, where he gets hit by that car, and then he's kind of getting taken care of by Nathan Lane and Amy Ryan's character for the most part. The third part is probably one of my favorite parts of the movie, to be honest. And you do get to see a little bit of this in the trailer as well, where it's just like this very artistic theater piece, where like these hand-painted and designed sets, and it is absolutely gorgeous, and it does mix in animation with it as well. And this scene, I can understand, goes on a while. This scene goes on a little too long. I can understand for some people. I'm never going to forget that scene. It was amazing how it was done. And I mean, credit to the animators and everything and everybody that actually did the work with that, because everything that went into it and the different ways that it goes and different set pieces it uses, it was phenomenal. I mean, I got to give it up to them. They did a fantastic job with that. And the fourth part of the movie, I don't even really want to talk about. I don't even want to really get into, because all I'm going to say is, as crazy and as bizarre as the movie is for those first 2.5 hours or so, that fourth part of the movie, the third act, is by far the most bizarre and bonkers thing you are probably going to see in a while. I mean, and I feel like we say this with Hereditary and also Midsommar. We're saying it with Beau is Afraid. This movie is absolutely bizarre and crazy. There was 2 times throughout that third act my jaw dropped. My jaw dropped in the movie theater, and I was just like, what is going on right now? And I loved it. And I mean, and immediately after coming out of the movie, I had my reservations. I was like, I think I liked that. I'm not really entirely sure. I think I liked it though. But the more that I kind of sit on it and I'm thinking, I've been thinking about this movie since this past weekend, since I saw it. And I cannot wait to see this movie again. I don't want to go sit in the theaters for 3 hours. I'm going to wait until it comes to Blu-ray or VOD to go to buy it or check it out again or watch it in the comfort of my own home, because 3 hours at a movie theater that doesn't have super comfy seats, it was kind of a chore, even though it was paced pretty well. But it was more so about the theater. I just kept thinking about it, and then going to Reddit and kind of reading other people's thoughts on it and see what some people didn't like or what some people did like about it. It made me really hyped to see it again, and it made me really kind of dive in and kind of examine everything that I processed and saw. Believe me, it would be extremely hard for me to sit down by myself and try to break down this full movie and kind of try to explain it, even though I feel like this movie isn't meant to be explained. I know there's going to be so many YouTubers out there that are going to go and try to dissect this movie and what is it all about, man? Where it's like, I feel like everybody's going to get their own interpretation of it in a way. It's not exactly Lynchian, where it's like, I have no idea what happened at all throughout that course of that whole movie. It's not like that. I really do believe I got a grasp of the overall story that Ari Aster was trying to tell and some of the themes that he was, laying throughout. I do have some questions about it, of course. Everybody's going to have some questions, but I do believe that I got the gist of it. I didn't in no way got it figured out by any means, but I believe I have my own interpretation of it, and I took what I wanted out of the movie. And I know a lot of people are going to try to sit back and try to figure it out or overanalyze it while they're watching. I feel like if you try to overanalyze a movie while you're watching it for the first time, it's not going to do you any favors. And I mean, I kind of went into that wanting to analyze it. Like, I even went into it with the thought of Hereditary and Midsommar in mind, where it's like I'm constantly looking in the background for like something that'll come up later or hidden messages, or because every time I watch Hereditary or Midsommar, I'm always picking up on new things. There's always stuff in the background, either foreshadowing something or just little Easter eggs or something that you may not have noticed before. And I was trying to do that in this movie. And believe me, there are a lot of things you can find in this movie just by looking in the background, or like little hidden gags or stuff like that. I don't believe it's like nearly as crazy. I don't think it nearly goes as far as like Midsommar, where it predicts the whole movie in that first, like, what is it, half hour where you see the tapestry of Midsommar. It's nothing like that. But I felt while I was watching it, when I sat there and relaxed and really just kind of experienced the movie, I just let the movie wash over me. I really started to enjoy it way more. Instead of analyzing it and trying to figure out everything while you're watching it, just let it happen. Just let the movie happen to you, and then make your judgment afterwards. Because I already know, and I mean, people are already hating on it. Some people are absolutely loving it. This is probably going to be the most divisive film of the whole year of 2023, and I mean, it's only going into May now. But this movie is going to be a huge mixed bag, probably more than Midsommar, definitely more than Hereditary. This movie is definitely going to have an audiences divided because this movie is certainly not for everybody. I can see people turning this movie off after like the first half hour or so. That's how kind of intense it is for the most part. But I mean, I really did enjoy it. I think the more that I'm thinking on it after watching it, I enjoy it even more. So I'm very interested in how I'm going to take it after watching it for a second time. And I would love to eventually get, Alex or somebody else within my group or a guest to come on and talk about it with me, to kind of get another person's point of view and perspective. That way we can kind of dive in and go into some spoilers. But I really don't want to get into spoilers of this movie, even though I did spoilers for Evil Dead. That's an Evil Dead movie. You kind of know what you're going to expect. With this movie, because of its runtime, because it just released, because of who the director is, Ari Aster, even in interviews that he has right now, he's not giving any information about this movie for a good reason. He wants people to go out and experience this movie for himself without knowing anything. And that's really what I want you to do as well. I want anybody that's watching this video to go out and experience this knowing as little as possible. But talking about the direction, Ari Aster absolutely did an amazing job with this. The budget for the movie was like $35 million, which is way bigger than Midsommar and Hereditary. A24 gave him a blank check. He went out there and just made this, ridiculous odyssey type movie, where he even kind of came out and said it was like the Jewish Lord of the Rings. I guess in a way you can kind of see that. I mean, it does tell a story of a one man's journey. And throughout the course of the journey, he just keeps getting, met with these wild characters and, getting into trouble and running into roadblocks along the way. When you look at it at a broad view, I guess you can kind of say that in a way. But it is like an Odyssey, like Homer's Odyssey type movie. I mean, it is about one man's journey. The movie isn't necessarily about the journey itself, but about the character and what he's been through in his whole life itself. It is very hard to explain without going into a lot of the spoilery type details of the film. As far as the cast, Joaquin Phoenix, he's definitely up there as probably one of the greatest actors of not only our generation, but probably ever. I mean, at this point, Joaquin Phoenix is doing an absolutely amazing job in everything that he's done. And it doesn't stop here. I mean, Beau is Afraid. There's so many different ranges of emotion that he goes through this whole thing, and he does a absolutely amazing job. Absolutely amazing job. And I mean, not just his character, but the movie itself covers such a wide variety of emotions. There's so many times in this movie that I was laughing. This movie is definitely Ari Aster's funniest movie. It's also kind of horrifying in a way. It's a little creepy and scary at certain parts. It's also very sad in certain parts. I almost shed a tear at one point. It was a little heartbreaking. It was a little sad. But there's so many, this movie pulls you in so many different directions. And Joaquin Phoenix is right there in the center of it, guiding you the whole way. He's damn near in every single scene. Absolutely fantastic. Amy Ryan, who did really well in this movie. I haven't seen her in too much recently. I did see her in Birdman, which I reviewed a couple weeks ago. If you haven't seen that review, please go check that out. That review didn't really do well. I was hoping it was going to do well. Not many people were into Birdman, I guess. I mean, hopefully with The Flash coming out, Michael Keaton is in the news. Maybe people go out and watch some Birdman. Go watch my review, please. But Amy Ryan was really good in this. I mainly know her as from like The Office and everything. Nathan Lane, he is probably one of the funniest characters in this movie. He plays like a surgeon, but he tries to use like hip lingo, like with the kids, the Steve Buscemi meme. But he does a bang up job, amazing job as well. Parker Posey was a sight for sore eyes. I totally forgot Parker Posey was doing movies, and it was, she was a breath of fresh air. I love seeing Parker Posey in this. Even though the limited amount she is in it, she was great. And I don't know how they convinced her to do this part for this movie, but I'm glad she did it because it was great to see her in there. She did great. And two of the other standout performers in this movie I have to mention is Patti LuPone, who plays Beau's mother. Not just Beau's mother, but Beau's mother in present day, because this movie jumps back and forth in time a little bit. She plays his mother in present day. And then you have Zoe Lister-Jones, who plays his mother whenever he was younger. Both of these actresses do an amazing job with the character. You can tell, I'm not sure if they work together to kind of figure out how this character is going to be played. I'm sure they would have had to, I guess. But they both did an amazing job with it. They both brought something unique to the character. You do get to see one of them way more than the other, but they both did an amazing job with this, especially Patti LuPone. The scenes that she's in, she really steals. She is absolutely amazing in this. I have to give a shout out to her. I can't really go into depth what she does or how her character is or how her character acts. That's better, left unsaid, because you definitely need to see this performance to believe it. But I mean, there was a couple surprises in there as well. There's a couple different cameos I wasn't expecting. Non-spoilerly, I can kind of let you know. Richard Kind is in this. Speaking of Curb Your Enthusiasm, which Richard Kind is in. Richard Kind is in this movie. I haven't seen him in a film in a while, so it was definitely interesting to see him in there, and he does a great job. You also got a small, little, tiny Bill Hader cameo. I'm not going to say it's a blink it and you'll miss it type thing, but I mean, if you're not paying attention, you can easily miss Bill Hader in this movie, but I mean, he's awesome. I mean, the scene he's in, it's pretty great. I mean, there's two different emotions. You feel a little sad and heartbreak in the scene, but because of Bill Hader's in there, it gives you a little level of comedy to it as well. Just the way that Bill Hader plays the character a little bit. And especially once you find out it's Bill Hader, it's even better. Now, watching this video, I know you're probably like, hey, Wyatt, I know you seem to really like this movie. Is there anything you don't like about it? Well, yes, there is some things I don't like about it. For one, as much as I think the 3-hour runtime isn't a big deal because of all the substance and how much stuff is in there, I feel like they definitely could have found some ways to trim it down a little bit. I don't believe it needed to be 3 hours. I feel like he definitely could have cut some things out of there, but who am I to judge his work and his art, putting out there? I definitely feel like it could have been trimmed down some. It didn't need to be the full 3 hours. There's one huge thing in this movie that I really don't want to give away that probably doesn't need to be in the movie as well. I feel like it definitely is very jarring. I mean, you're going to know it when you see it, when you watch the movie. You're absolutely going to know it when you see it. There is a part in the third act where Beau is faced with arguably the most bizarre thing in the entire movie. Of course, there's some stuff in there for shock value. There's stuff also in there to be a metaphor for what's going on and kind of the theme of the movie overall and what's going on within the story with Beau. But it didn't necessarily need to be in there. I feel like they maybe could have found a way to do it a little different. I feel like they could have found a way around it to not do what they did. but they certainly did it. And I mean, it's definitely something I've never seen before in a film, and I'll probably never see anything like it in a film again. And I'm definitely not going to spoil this for you, but I'm just going to let you know you're not prepared for what I'm talking about. You're going to get there and you're going to see it and you're like, oh, that's exactly what Wyatt was saying. That's exactly what Wyatt was talking about. Once you get to that certain scene, you have a buildup. You have a buildup to it. You're building up to something and you're like, oh shit, what's going on? What's happening? What's happening? And you're kind of on your edge of your seat at this point. This is probably one of the more tense, creepy, and more insane moments in the movie. And then once you get hit with this huge big reveal, it's definitely one of the two moments that my jaw dropped to the floor, which is a good thing because not many movies make my jaw drop like that. But it is just so jarring and unbelievably crazy that it kind of takes you out of it. It kind of throws you off for a minute. It kind of takes you out of the movie for a minute, and it kind of is like, is this for real? Is Ari Aster for real? What is going on right now? Am I being punked? Is Ashton Kutcher going to come out of the movie theater here with TV cameras? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people are going to get that reference. Punk's pretty old now. Once you see it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I feel like it's definitely very jarring and unnerving. I could have done without it. I feel like if you would have taken that part out of the movie, if you would have kept that scene, just taken that one thing out, I really wouldn't have too many problems with this movie. That other than like the runtime and everything. That I'm not saying to rub me the wrong way, because it's certainly interesting, but it's definitely something that I could have done without. But I don't know, maybe on a second rewatch, maybe it'll grow on me. Jesus Christ. I really don't know what else to say about Beau is Afraid, because the less said, the better. I did really enjoy the movie. Ari Aster, I hope he gets to keep making movies like this for A24. I hope A24 keeps giving them all the money to push out crazy fucking movies, because I will be there every single opening weekend for them. And even though this movie just came out, I cannot wait to see what Ari Aster comes up with next, because I'm sure that this next movie will be vastly different from this movie and everything that's come before. He's one of my favorite directors in the game right now, because he's keeping me on my toes. Even though the one little thing, and it's not really a problem with the movie itself, it's more so just an Ari Aster thing. All three of these films, Beau is Afraid, Midsommar, and Hereditary, they all have one element that's the same. And it's kind of an overarching theme through all three of the movies as well. And you'll know what I mean probably whenever you see this. And I don't want to tell you what it is, because I don't even want to get you to think about it before you go see Beau is Afraid, because if I tell you that theme, you're going to be thinking about it through Beau is Afraid, and it might take you out of it, or it might kind of spoil you about what Beau is Afraid is for the most part. And that is definitely what I'm not trying to do. I know this review didn't tell you a lot about the story or what's in it or some of the crazier shit in it. I understand that. You may be frustrated with my review. Some people walked out of this movie frustrated as well. I understand that. As well. But I feel like I'm doing you a favor by telling you the least amount as possible. The things I did like about it was the writing. I thought the writing was top notch. I thought the directing was top notch. I mean, Ari Aster does really well with certain cutaways and everything. I think the directing was top notch. Some of the effects in it are a little iffy, but I mean, from what he said, he stretched that budget as far as it could go, man. So I mean, I'll give him a little leeway there. Some of the effects are a little iffy, but for the most part, it was a wild ride of a movie. I enjoyed it. I cannot wait to go see it again. That third part of the movie with, the art and animation style, it was gorgeous. It was absolutely amazing. That's one of the parts I cannot wait to see, like on my big screen here at the house. I highly recommend anybody that's a fan of A24 movies, that's a fan of Ari Aster movies, definitely go out and check this movie out. This movie is definitely not for everybody. You may not come out of this movie liking it at all. Hey, I told you. I told you. But you may come out of it really liking it. And you may come out with something different than what I got out of it. And I'm really hoping that I can get either a guest or one of my friends to sit down and watch this movie and come on to the show, and that way we can talk about and do a spoiler review and kind of break down everything that we saw in this whole wild ass fucking movie, because I wouldn't be able to do it myself. I wouldn't be able to I feel like I would be doing you a disservice to do it by myself. I would need somebody else to kind of go off of to talk about this crazy movie. But yeah, that's Beau is Afraid, man. Beau is Afraid. And I mean, Beau's afraid of a lot of things. And I mean, you're probably going to be afraid of a lot of things watching this movie too, as you'll come to find out. That is my review for this week. I do recommend going and checking out the movie, especially in theaters. I do know it's an IMAX. If you can go see it in IMAX, definitely go see it there, because I mean, just for that animation and play scene alone, it's going to look phenomenal on IMAX screen. I wish I could have seen that. So go check it out. Give it a chance. I highly recommend anybody to go give a film a chance, even if it's not recommended by another a YouTuber or a critic. Say if they don't like it, hey, that doesn't mean you won't like it, man. I'm never going to hate on anybody for disliking a movie I liked or liking a movie I disliked. You know, I'm not going to do that. I'm not that guy. You know, different strokes for different folks. And that's where I'm going to leave you today. If you have seen the movie already, make sure to tell me what you did like or didn't like about the movie in the comments below. I would love to see what everybody's opinion on the film are. I'm sure they're going to be completely varied all across the board. So I'm for sure looking forward to that. If you haven't already, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Go check us out on Instagram and Twitter at Cinema Trip Reviews. Also, wherever you get your podcasts, pretty much available everywhere. Drop in and leave us a good review there. And we'll see everybody next week.